Good afternoon. I am Paula Fontana, Vice President of Strategic Programming Initiatives with the National Black MBA Association, and it is my absolute pleasure to welcome you to our final installment of Rethinking Your Business Entrepreneurs Webinar Series brought to us by StartCo. I would also like to thank and welcome our sponsor for today, Fiserv, who will be part of this discussion. We are incredibly excited about the partnership with both organizations, realizing the need to provide more support to our entrepreneur membership base. So I have the privilege of introducing two gentlemen today. The first is Marquis Solomon with Fiserv. He is a senior training consultant. He's been with the organization for 6 years. Absolutely love his energy. He is a published author, a poet, and a motivational speaker. So I'm positive you will get a lot out of his discussion today. His absolute favorite saying is, "It's a great day to be alive." So you can tell just by that what type of energy he will be bringing to the discussion. We also have Andre Folks with StartCo. For the past 10 years, he's been working to grow the technology startup ecosystem in the Memphis area. He leads change to build and operate new programs and resources for the inclusion of minorities, women, and students. Again, a very dynamic discussion that we will have today. Let's kick things off right away with Marquise, otherwise known as Solo.
Thank you, Paula. Thank you, Paula Fontaine. I am so glad to be here, folks. This is an amazing opportunity, and I hope that I'm able to give you guys some information that you'll be able to take back and think about. So let's start off with who we are. And when I say who we are, I mean Fiserv. You may have heard the name. You may not necessarily know what it is that we do. Fiserv. Who is Fiserv? So Fiserv is a fintech company, guys. We do financial technology. Specifically, our origins are in merchant processing. We're the #1 merchant processing company in the world in more than 125, 26 countries. #1 acquirer, #1 processor, #1 independent network. All of those things sound wonderful, but at the end of the day, we partner with small to medium-sized businesses. That's what we do. We help businesses go from good to great. One of the wonderful things about being here talking with you guys is that I get to talk to other entrepreneurs, other Black entrepreneurs, about taking their businesses from good to great. As for myself, you heard Paula tell you some things about me. I'm a consultant, so I train our consultants how to go out and speak with businesses on how to be more efficient, more productive, and more successful in the day-to-day operations of their businesses. As it says on the screen, our aspiration as a company is to move money and information in ways that move the world. Now, our purpose is to deliver superior value to our clients through leading targeted technology and innovation, as well as an excellence in everything that we do. So that means that we don't necessarily do things the old-fashioned ways or traditional ways. We always want to be right there on the cutting edge. This is important because most businesses today, or most successful businesses, operate in a digital landscape, all right? And so what we do is we help community environments build digital roots that connect them not only with their customers, but with their peers. So let's talk some more about Fiserv here, guys. And we won't talk about them long because I want to get right down to my most important point, what's in it for you. But Fiserv is a company that believes in innovation. This year alone, we'll put over $500 million in funded programs to support digital enablement, advanced risk management, e-commerce, and a cornucopia of other things that help business, again, transform from good business models to great business models. Now, what do we do? All right, it's a lot of fancy words, a lot of $5 and $10 words, as my dad would say, but when it comes down to it, what do? We go out and help small to medium-sized businesses in specific verticals address the issues that they deal with day to day, whether it's cash management, taxes, state, local, and federal taxes, inventory management, keeping up with stock, keeping up with employees. We help them to digitize these processes so that they can be more efficient and more productive. We talk and consult with them about e-commerce and about being the best business that they can be. We help bridge the digital gap between small and medium-sized businesses and business technologies. So what do I mean by this? We're all intimately familiar with our culture, with Black businesses, and the struggles that they deal with from day to day. One of those struggles is having a good understanding of what fintech means to their establishment, whether it's the mom and pop restaurant that has the best barbecue in the city, but may have some issues with making sure that they can keep a consistent inventory, or it's the new candle and incense shop that has an amazing clientele, but is unable to reach their client base on a consistent basis. Our job as a company, and my job as a consultant, is to make sure that we bridge that gap between the things that make them good and the things that make them great. So let's talk about our clients. Our clients are small business owners. What we found is that 49% of those small business owners started their business to turn a passion into a living. I'm one of those individuals. Outside of the suit and tie guys, I spend a lot of time behind the turntables. I'm a DJ. I'm a professional DJ. It's not necessarily the money that makes me do it. It's the love of music, the love of the sound and the rhythm and the way that people react when they hear that song that just brings back those memories. It's that passion. But without the right technology behind me, it's harder to make a living off of the passion. We found that 55% of all small business owners work 60 or more hours per week. That's what our client looks like, 60 or more hours a week. Someone once told me that when you become an entrepreneur, when you become self-employed, you trade in a 40-hour-a-week job where you chase someone else's dream to 80 hours a week chasing your own dream. And then the other statistic that I want to share with you guys is the one that's the most heartbreaking for me. It's that 43% of business owners aren't able to take a vacation, whether that be because they lack the staff to man their operation while they're out, or because they don't trust the staff that they have there, or that they just don't feel comfortable walking out of their doors and expecting to be open when they get back. This is our client base. This is who we deal with, guys. These are my customers. These are your customers. These are you. So how do we do this? How do we go out into the business environment and make impacts into small business lives? We do this through our Clover line of business solutions. The Clover Station, the Clover Station Pro, our Clover Mini, our Clover Flex, even down to our Clover Go and our online Clover solutions. We provide smart technology that allows our business owners to cut down on labor, man hours, and cost without sacrificing efficiency, productivity, or the excellence of their products. We have an open platform architecture, which means that we take the machines that you just saw, infuse them with applications that deal directly with the issues that small businesses have, whether it be inventory, loyalty and rewards programs, employee management, analytics and insights, marketing, website development, web ordering, and accounting, as well as gift cards. All of these things are done on a smart platform. We've designed it so that it works just like a cell phone that we all have. If you look to your left or your right now, your cell phone is within 2 feet of you, guaranteed. That's why we designed it the way that we did, so that it would be a comfortable transition from old paper and pen techniques to new technology that takes these businesses into the next century. Our current app market has 2 million plus app downloads. We've got 350 plus apps right now and over 1,000 developers working directly with merchants to create applications that help better their business. Bottom line, Clover is the best thing out there for our merchants. Now, let's talk about what that means for you guys. What does that mean for the small business owner? Specifically, what does that mean for the Black small business owner? As a community, we've often been in a position where we're playing catch up. It's hard to put ourselves on a level playing field with, say, an Amazon or McDonald's or an Ebanol massage parlor. All of these companies are larger companies that have access to programs and processes that the small business owner normally does not have access to, folks. Fortunately, we've designed our programs to fit the small to medium-sized business owner. We can give our small business owners the same level of support that we would give an Amazon or McDonald's. The same analytics that they have in terms of their customers, their competitors, the demographics of those customers, all of that information, we put it together, package it, and provide it to our merchants. A lot of these solutions come along with the SaaS plans that are already there, so there's no additional cost. What that means to you? That means that now, if you own a small restaurant or a small chain of restaurants, we can help you to connect those restaurants. We can help you to build up your customer base with loyalty programs. We can help you manage your inventory and turn a process where you're spending 3-4 hours a day, 2 hours in the morning and 2 hours in the afternoon doing inventory, and turn that into a 30-minute process. We have applications in place that will allow you to project your sales for next week and next month and the month after that, and then build a schedule based on those sales and the particular talents of your employees in a couple of minutes, as opposed to spending 2 and 3 hours building out that schedule, and then another hour and a half disseminating it amongst the staff, and then another half a day answering the phone on Sunday, waiting on the employees to call to get their schedules. Our job at Fiserv is to help the small to medium-sized businesses. My job here is to make sure that I let you guys know that I'm here to answer any questions that you may have, to provide any insight, to consult, to support our community. Because at the end of the day, I'm a Fiserv employee. At the end of the day, I'm a citizen of Atlanta. But also at the end of the day, first and foremost, I'm a Black man. I'm a Black entrepreneur. And I care. I care. I want us to be successful as a community. So what all this means is that we have the resources, we have the talent, we have the will. We're here. We are here. A couple of other things I want to share with you. Competitive advantage. We make sure that we give our business owners the competitive advantage by making sure that they can accept payments anywhere, that we create conversational commerce, and we expand out on the things that they're doing to help them get from good to great. Currently, guys, we're supporting Black and minority businesses in a major way. We've invested $10 million in making sure that small to medium-sized Black-owned businesses will do well, not only in this era that we're in now in terms of COVID-19 and the pandemic, but beyond now. We've got our official Black Wall Street initiative. We're working with the National Black Chamber of Commerce, all right? Direct grants. We got direct grants going to small and medium-sized businesses to make sure that they do well. That's my alarm, folks, telling me I've been talking for an awful long time that I'm going to have to pass it over in a second. And we've also got programs that serve as incubators and resource providers to make sure that everything that Black businesses need, that they have. Now, normally we go to Q&A right now, but instead of doing that, we're going to wait because I love the open air organic environment in which you guys answer questions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it over to Andre now, and he's going to tell you about the amazing things that they're doing at StartCo. Andre, are you ready? Are you with me, Andre? Let's give Andre a second. I think he's getting his presentation queued up there. Excellent. Andre, I'm passing it over to you.
All right. All right, can you all hear me now? I think. All right, I think we can all hear me.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that. I think we had a little technical difficulties there. Marquise, thank you for your prelim there. Appreciated all the good information about Fiserv and look forward to bringing you into the discussion here in a few moments. Again, my name is Andre, folks. I'm with StartCo based in Memphis, Tennessee. Paula, thank you for the introduction earlier. Well, we're going to hop right into it. Today, we're going to be talking about sales process and operational capacity. And basically, we're going to hop into some discussions on, laying out a sales pipeline, the client decision-making process, mapping and data mining your client journey, and also looking at this operational capacity to support it. We'll also get into some business development strategies that could be useful for you and your company that you're growing. If you remember, what we talked about last time was we really got into risk and competitive landscape, and we had a few people join us on our call, a venture capitalist and also another startup company. And we're going to do something similar again this time. We have Vijay Harrell with Trade Lanes who will join us in a few minutes, and will join Marquise in a discussion that we'll have on some of these topics that we're talking about. Well, one of the things I wanted to spend some time with you on is really starting to think through what your sales process is. Many times we're so focused on our product or service that we're building that we many times need a little bit of support on how do we actually bring it to market and how do we outline a process for doing that that can be successful. And so what we want to spend a little time on first is how do you generate leads? At the end of the day, do you know the top 2 or 3 strategies that you can use to go direct to your customers to bring them into your sales pipeline? Whether that's using some form of a social media strategy, whether that's direct email approach, cold calling, buying email list, using databases and repositories. But we always want to be able to have what we feel are those top few scenarios that bring us to our customers. And typically, you'll go through some form of a prospecting phase. And what I'm talking about today is more of a manual process, but this still applies if you're building a piece of automated technology, whether you have a virtual site or something along those lines. And when you think this through, if you're prospecting, you're trying to reach the customer, engage in them, and hopefully get to a point where you can present your value proposition around your product or a service. And maybe that comes in the form of a meeting. Maybe that comes in the form of them clicking through your website to actually see the service and the value that's delivered. But at some point, you want to be able to make that pitch to them. And then overall, you're hoping to maybe gather some information from them that helps you better bring your solution to them. You know, whether you want to learn more about the business that you're selling on, the actual customer, you need some information from them. But typically, we want to gather some form of information so that way you can better assist them. Those of you who are familiar with selling on businesses or enterprises, you definitely want to analyze this information so you can come up with some recommendations. Maybe you have a more customized approach because you have a core product or service, but you want to tailor it to the needs of the actual business you're selling on. And so that's why you analyze the information that they gave you so you can make sure that you're speaking to the needs that they have. Then overall, there's some form of proposal or recommendation that you bring to them, and hopefully you work with them to hopefully have them say yes, you know, and they make a purchase with you. I think this is all important. We have to understand that, you know, it's important to lay out the pieces of your sales process, whether it looks like this or not. These are some common elements that you normally see. And you want to work through this, and you want to lay out the individual steps along the way. You know, how many emails did it take to actually get on the phone with the client? How many phone calls did it actually take before you thought that you could give them a formal pitch? At what point were you able to gather the appropriate information? How long did it take for you to analyze and crunch that information? Then you had to put proposals together, and then you had to set other meetings to hopefully have them purchase and come on board. Now, the question is, how long does that take? Do you have any idea how long your sales process is? From the time that you started your marketing strategy to the time that you have a check in your hand or dollars in the account? Do you have a very simple sales process that's instantaneous? Someone walks into a store and buys something within 30 minutes? Or is it something that takes up to 12 months, doing enterprise sales and working into big corporations or institutions? Do we have any idea? Have we ever thought about it? You know, many times when we review financials for investment, we'll see that many times they'll show dollars starting on month one. And then we'll ask them how long their sales process is, and they'll tell us maybe 3 or 4 months. And so that means they haven't factored
Andre, are you still with us? So it looks like we are having a few technical difficulties. Please stand by. Andre, looks like you're back with us.
Yeah, apologies. I'm not sure what's going on. Let me see if I can pick up where we left off.
All right. There we go. Back like we never left.
Okay, great. What I was speaking of before was really starting to see how your sales process could really kick off your financial forecast on the revenue side. And I think one of the things that we want to think through is, as we map out that sales process, how much time, money, and resources have to be allocated to that sales process for you to be effective? You know, are you spending a lot of time going on meetings, talking on the phone? What materials do you need along the way? Do you need scripts for phone conversations and emails that you send? Do you need proposal information that's already crafted that you can customize? These are things we want to be thinking about along the way that I think are very, very important. At the same time, it doesn't just stop with mapping out the sales process. We have to then think about the client decision-making process. And this is just as important. There's so many times where we may map out a sales process, but it doesn't speak or align to the client decision-making process. And there's many times we sell on clients and we wonder why they're not responding in the way that we hope that they would. And this is where we have to understand they're receiving an inbound inquiry from you who's trying to do business with them as a vendor. They look at it as a vendor pitch. They might be getting dozens of vendor pitches on a daily basis. And so we have to understand that we're not the only one that they're talking to. At the same time, maybe sometimes just sits on their desk and we've been calling on them and thinking everything is fine, and maybe they haven't even thought about it for over a month. You know, at some point, if they get interested, they'll research you. They'll vet you. They'll look at your credentials. They'll look at your website. They'll see if it speaks to what you have been pitching them. And we have to understand that they're going to do this screening of our company. And then at one point, they're going to decide, do they elevate this or not? Do they bring this to other members of their team or other members of whoever is involved in making the purchase decision? And at the same time, we want to be understanding that maybe it's at that point that the true sales process actually begins for them. And so here we are, maybe we had the first meeting, we sent them some information and we think that we're going to be able to close them or move them forward, but maybe it sat on a desk for a month and we're peppering them with emails, asking them to follow up when really maybe it didn't fit into their process. And so I think this is important. You have to really put yourself in the client's shoes and think through their steps of making the purchase decision for you. How long does that process take for them? And does that match up with the duration of your sales process? Many times it doesn't. And at the same time, who is the jury that we're selling on? Who all is involved in making the sell? Many times we're talking to what we call the champion, someone who really gets what you do, they're excited about it, and they will talk about it internally at their business. But there are other members of the jury. There's sometimes what we call the economic buyer, who is making the decision based on money. Do we have the money to invest in this? How much is it going to cost? What's the value we're going to get from it? And then who is that person and do we need to talk to them? At the same time, maybe there's a saboteur that's part of the equation. Someone who is always selling against new ideas, new opportunities, and new vendors. And do we need to be speaking with them and understanding how to work through this mix? At the end of the day, it has to be worth their time and it has to fit into their behavior as an institution making a decision. The same goes for even something as simple as purchasing a plane ticket. You know, if you think about it, do we purchase the plane ticket the first time we hop online to look at it? Do we confer with our spouse before making a vacation trip, family members, friends, etc.? There's usually a decision process we go through before we make decisions. And so we have to understand this if we're selling on, whether it's a business or customers at large. Just a few things to note. Whenever you're laying out your sales process, I think it's always important to understand what does it cost to acquire that customer? I think many times we don't have that number and we're always having to go back and look into the data just to see where that is. What are all the activities that you put into sales and marketing and onboarding of that particular customer? Do we understand what our lifetime value is? How much money can we make off of that customer in our lifetime? And we can't assume long assumptions around, well, if we keep the client for 20 years, we'll make that much money. Many times for a startup company, we'll look at lifetime value over the first year or two. What are your assumptions rooted in? Do you have past examples of clients that you can lean on to get some information and some data? If not, maybe you can start with some industry data. Anywhere, we just need to begin. For those of you who are already up and running, does your sale speak to the return on investment that you generate? There's a lot of you out there who are generating great return and value. You have numbers to back it up, but you're still selling as if you're an early stage company. Always make sure that your sell speaks to the actual real-time numbers you're delivering. If you are delivering X amount of customer satisfaction, let's talk about it. If on average you have saved your clients X number of money, let's talk about it. And same thing for revenue. When you're laying this out, don't forget about churn or turnover. We want to make sure we factor that into our numbers. Think through your onboarding costs. And then also, once you bring clients on, you then have to manage the relationship. A lot of times we don't think about this. We get them on board, and then there's a servicing cost that come with it. More importantly, let's make sure we consider our bargaining power with our purchasers. Are they moving us all over the place on price, or are we able to move them around a little bit? And let's make sure we're not undercharging. There's many startups we've worked with who have very high closing rates, and sometimes it's because maybe they're not charging as much. Maybe they could get away with charging more. The other thing I want us to think about is, as you lay out a sales process or pipeline, how many prospects can be going through that pipeline at any given time? This is where we'll see an issue in some of the financials we look at. You know, we can't work 1,000 prospects at once. Only X number will move to close, and each one requires an amount of labor. And so we have to come up with a number. How many can our sales team or us as individuals handle at any given time? And then that forces us to start thinking through any economies of scale. A few other things, and then we'll start a discussion here with our guests. A lot of times we look at a sale as a meeting, and you can't have a sales pitch without a sales process. So if you haven't mapped out the process, we don't really have a sale yet, all right? And so what we want to do is set expectations early on in the process with the client, even show them the process and try to keep them on path as best you can. When they take you off the path, you bring them back to the expectations that you set with them in the beginning. Get them to agree to the process, then pursue it and don't mess it up. At some point, you have to make the ask. You have to ask them for their business. And so don't just assume that they understand. And I would also be very leery of the term interesting. You know, so many times startups are meeting with potential clients, and they're always like, well, this is interesting, and this could be something we work on. Ask them to define what that means. The other thing is, know what your strengths are. Is it the product? Are you building a product or service that's just unbelievable and they have to have it? Is it the deal? Is the way that you're packaging the money around it just too good to pass up? Or is it the person? Do they really believe in you or your management team and getting the job done? Whatever your strengths are, that should be resonating through your sell. And as we mentioned before, does it speak to the ROI? And what I mean by that is, how are we going to generate revenue? How are we going to generate better customer satisfaction? And how are we going to cut costs or be more operationally efficient? All right, well, wanted to open it up a little bit. I think it's good to have a perspective from Marquise with Fiserv, and I'm going to introduce VJ Harrell of Trade Lanes, because we have a startup on the line, and you have a startup who's coming at it from the early stages, and a mature financial services technology company who has a great world of experience in some of the systems that they've been deploying. And so VJ, I want to start with you. I would love it if you could just give everybody on the line a brief introduction on Trade Lanes. And then I'm also interested in the importance of having a sales process for your startup. Maybe you could just shed a little light on what you all have seen on your end. Oh, wait, I think you're on mute there, VJ.
Thanks, Andre. Great presentation. You too, Marquise. Thanks for having me, everyone. So just a little bit about Trade Lanes. We eliminate the manual paperwork needed to ship ocean containers. We built our platform around the premise that whoever delivers to the customer on time wins the business. It's the new discipline to win in global trade today. And we call that trade delivery. It's one part trade execution automation, which is streamlining your process, and then one part kind of providing an Amazon-like customer experience. Quick background on how we got started. We were participating in the world's first ever logistics accelerator in Memphis, Tennessee, sponsored by FedEx. This is how I met Andre. He started off, not only was he helping to run the program, but was a mentor to me and Trade Lanes, our organization. We were doing something in air cargo, actually, is how we got into the FedEx program. But within 2 weeks of being there, you know, Andre had introduced us to a lot of different people. So we went to this MMBC, I think it's Minority Business Committee or something like that. We met this small business that got $1 million offer for their products. They manufacture dock equipment. There is a new warehouse in Mexico that it came from, and this company had never shipped to Mexico. So they turned down $1 million worth of sales because they didn't know how to do the export documents. This blew my mind. I'm thinking, wait, you turned down $1 million because of some documents? So we thought there's got to be a bigger problem here. So about 4 months later, we met Andre's brother, Denari. He worked at this company named Louis Dreyfus. Now, at the time, the only Dreyfus I knew was the actress from Seinfeld. It turns out that Dreyfus had this problem too. Documentation was costing them a lot of money, but more broadly, something called trade execution automation. And that's when the light bulb went off. I said, wait a minute, you're telling me a $30 billion global ag merchant has the same problem as a 15-person manufacturer in Memphis, Tennessee? Hashtag boom, Trade Lanes is born. This is an unusual path to starting a company, but I then spent the next 2 years traveling the Midwest, kind of couch surfing, using Airbnb, sitting down with trade execution teams a minimum 1 day per week, watching what they did, mirroring, interviewing, taking notes, and then designing a system that ultimately fit within a trade execution. And it paid off, because when we got our first customer, now I think a faster path would have been, hey, go get a job doing trade execution for maybe 6 months or do an internship. But I don't know, sometimes I don't do things the easy way. When we get our first customer, it was the largest ethanol producer in the world. And I said, why did you guys choose us? At the time, we're 3 people, and just kind of about to become 5, 6, 7. And they said, it's clear that you guys understand trade execution, that you built this for people like us and teams like us. But more importantly, if we could take what is in our head and put it into a system, it would be Trade Lanes. So our sales process came from that deep understanding of how the teams operate. What I found when I was spending all this time on site is that they would always pick up the phone, no matter what, because they always thought that there might be something wrong with their shipment. So instead of doing emails, we cold called, because I knew that there was like a 90% chance that they would pick up the phone. So we actually have like a 80% conversion rate on just cold calling. Now, the key was, in the first couple of seconds, they need to know that we were experts in trade execution, not selling a software solution, but an expert in this particular area. And so after thousands of cold calls and over 400 interviews, I was able to craft a message that within the first 15 seconds, they knew that we were experts. And that would lead to the next 2 minutes where we would talk about specific pain points and how we were solving them. And then that would set up the first discovery call. So our sales process was become an expert. When you contact them, share something with them that makes you stand out, that says, hey, these guys know what they're talking about and they're thinking about it differently. And then use that to set up a first discovery call. And then from the discovery call, it's about telling our story, our narrative, why we're different, but then deep diving into them as to like what the root cause of their issues, because every business's root cause is going to be different, even though they have the same pain points. And then ensuring that when you set up a demo or walk through a potential solution, that their pain points align with how you're presenting a way to solve them. And as long as that way to solve them aligns with the features that you're offering them, you're going to have a really, really good engaging sales process. And I think of it less of a sales process and more of a customer buying experience, because customers are buying and they're not being sold to.
Well, I like that. I like how you talked about it. That's a nice little segue, Marquise, into, I'm sure, many of the things that you all have seen with some of the businesses you serve, and maybe the lack of having a process for how they implement their business. Any light you want to shed on how you all see things in terms of the businesses you work with? Not sure we can hear you. Let's see here.
Yeah, I can't hear him either.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me
Yes,
now?
we got loud and clear.
Oh, excellent. I was on mute there. So one of the things that VJ said that struck home, that's very similar to Fiserv's philosophy in terms of dealing with customers, is zeroing in on the customer need. We've all got a million people that are offering us a million solutions to a million things, but if those solutions don't speak directly to that customer's need, to that pain point, then all of those solutions are for naught. The fact that you were able to zero in on a need, an industry, a gap in that industry, a value gap, if you would, and then be able to take advantage of that and turn that into a lively and successful business is a testament to your business savvy. So I commend you there. But back to the point, it's important that as business owners that you understand that you're only as valuable to your customer as a solution to their issue. You can have an amazing product. You can be the best service provider in the world, but you've got to be able to sit down with that merchant, discover what their actual need is, and then draw a line that is a direct correlation between that need and your solution. That need and your solution. I'll give you an example. My barber, and I know you guys look at my head and say, what do you need a barber for, right? No, but my barber who cuts my beard worked in a shop for 3-4 years. And up for that 3 or 4 years, I went in there faithfully every other week and got my beard trimmed. I sat there, I played checkers, I played the dozens, I enjoyed the conversation, the camaraderie, but lo and behold, around March, the pandemic hit. Now, when the pandemic hit, my need for a haircut did not change. I still needed a haircut, but his ability to supply me with that particular service went away because his shop closed. One of my consultants that was in an earlier class had a conversation with my barber and understood what his need was. That need being to be able to contact his customers, to be able to make appointments, and then to be able to see those customers in a way that was not endangering their safety. Once our state started to open up, albeit too early, I will say that, too early, because of that consultative conversation, because they were able to understand each other, listen to each other, and consult, and draw a line, a direct correlation between a need and a solution, my barber is now in an entirely different location. He sees one person at a time, only one person there, but the solution that they were able to provide was him being able to take appointments online, take payments online, advertise and market to his specific customer base, and do so, it appears, at a significant gain to his profit than what he was originally doing. And again, right back around to the issue, it's about understanding the need and tying it to a specific solution. Back to you, Andre.
Well, thanks for that. And that kind of begs a question here, VJ, you know, in terms of managing the relationship during the sales process, right? I mean, you know, you learn a lot over the years on what works and what doesn't work. You mind shedding any light on how you managed relationships of these prospects and even beyond to where they became on board and became clients?
Yeah. You know, I always, you know, I think my first job was like making pizza or bagging groceries, one of those two. And I think it was actually bagging groceries in Ingalls in Tucker, Georgia, right outside of Atlanta. So, and I always remember from that retail experience, or even just online experience, if you make it hard for me to pay or just do what I want to do, I'm not going to sign up for your service. So I always think like that's my guiding light. I want to make it easy for them to buy. I want to make that process as easy as possible. So the analogy I'll make is that we try to see ourselves as like Han Solo or Yoda, the Star Wars analogy, to Luke Skywalker, right? We're giving our customer the lightsaber they need to take down the Death Star. And whatever it takes to get there, whether that's training, whether they get to figure out some things on their own, whether it's this, you know, whatever that is, from the conversation that we have, establishing ourselves as an expert, you know, having some understanding of what the challenges are, but then really understanding how those specific challenges relate to their business, and then providing like this new way, the force is with you. We're guiding that conversation to a specific end goal, the promised land, but it's their journey. So making sure that we support them with whatever information that they need to get there. And they're going to do it on their own timeline. And so I think like that's probably the best analogy without getting into specifics that I can provide. Like we kind of see ourselves as Yoda to Luke Skywalker.
Well, that's good. I like that. And, Marquise, I mean, you all provide all types of technology for your clients, and that factors into how you manage their relationships. Any thoughts on how you manage relationships and make sure you fit the needs that you were talking about there?
Definitely. It kind of centers on something that BJ was talking about, and that's client engagement. It's necessary that you engage with your client. We oftentimes start conversations off with the businesses that we're able to partner with a simple question. What does this process look like for you? What does your day-to-day process look like? From the time you walk in the door to you leave, tell us what that is. Tell that story for us so that we have a better understanding of what you're going through, what your business is going through, and how you're operating. And once we gather information there, we ask another question. In the perfect world, what would you like it to look like? And then that gives you a good understanding of where they are right now and where they'd like to be. That's how you discover where the gap is and how then you're able to tie specific solutions to that gap, to those needs. Our clients are at their heart just like us. They're people. They've got wants, they've got needs, they've got things that keep them up at night. And the best way to gain your merchant's loyalty, your client's loyalty, is to understand those needs.
Yeah.
And to be empathetic in your conversations with them.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And I'd just add one more thing. I mean, in that story that we tell it in a story form because that's why people go to movies and turn off their cell phone for 3 hours. They want to be engaged. So if you can tell that story from where they are today to where they want to be, along with your solution as a lightsaber to get there. And in sales, closing a sale is just the beginning of a relationship. So we also have something called customer success that gets engaged. Once they say, hey, we want to move forward, customer success, that part of that buying experience or that customer experience is getting them, customer success is dedicated to making our customers successful with our products. And we want them involved early so that they understand our customers. So not like before they sign the contract, once they sign, they're being onboarded. And then once they're using the product or the service, our success team is helping them become more successful. And sometimes that can lead to cross-sells and upsells. So just, building on top of your points, Marquise, is I think exactly what you're talking about, getting them from where they are today to where they want to be and thinking of it as an entire experience that has sort of a loop back. And you want to keep engaging them not only in the sales process, but once they become a customer and make them a more successful customer.
Let me touch on a couple more slides, and I want to come back to that to close out. So give me just one moment. I want to come back to some of the systems and processes that I think you all are well aware that we need in terms of moving our businesses forward. So let me move on here to a couple of slides. This is a business model canvas that we all know about, an open source tool that breaks your business down into 9 components. I'm just going to focus on a couple here, and that's right in the middle. The value proposition that you are wanting to deliver to your customer segment on the right. And then what channels are you going to use to do that? Channels could be the ways that you generate leads. And the thing I want us to look here is to the left-hand side, it mentions what are the key partners, key activities, and key resources you need to deliver that value proposition. Another way of looking at this is looking at an operating model canvas. Now, many times we want to spend most of our time on our process, our value delivery chain, our bread and butter of how we deliver our product and service. But many times these things surrounding it could either contribute to that process or slow us down. What are our relationships with our suppliers? How many locations do we have, or do we have people in multiple locations that we have to manage? What are the information systems we need to help this process? What are the management systems we need to help this process? And then how are our people organized so that we can be successful in this value delivery chain? Far too often, we're not organized in these other elements, and it is an inhibitor to this value delivery process. And so it's vitally important that we understand better what are the systems, the people, the process, and the organizations that we need. Vitally important here. You know, we've kind of joined the two canvases together for those companies where this is applicable, so you can kind of see this illustration. And I'm going to close out here, and I want to come back to that in our discussion. Business development. There are many of you out there who are trying to get off the ground and start your business. And maybe you don't have the dollars or the resources to roll out expensive campaigns. But there are some things you could be doing, you know, right now. First and foremost, if we know who our customer is, do we have what we call a lead list? You know, do we have a list of 250 customers that we can put to paper that we can begin reaching out to in a variety of different formats? Have we built any centers of influences? Centers of influences are other companies or organizations or entities who have the same clientele as you, but they're not your competition. I'll give you an example. When I was in the financial services space as an advisor, I worked with estate planners and mortgage brokers. We had similar clientele, but we weren't competition, and we sent business back and forth to one another. At the same time, have we started to put together our forecast on revenue and expenses? Have we identified our key marketing channels? Do we have 2 or 3 of them that are very, very specific? Have we mapped out our first sales process? And are we asking for referrals on a regular basis? The other thing is, in the very beginning, what content are you generating and how are you packaging it so that you are well received in your process of generating relationships? At the end of the day, the success of your business at the early stages is based on relationships and how you manage them. And so these are just things that I would be working on, generating my leads and putting them to paper and qualifying them, building up centers of influences, hopefully 5 to 6 that can support my business, laying out some financial forecasting of what I think might happen, generating content that shows that I'm an expert at my craft for my business, understanding what my channels are to reach them, and then asking for referrals as often as you possibly can, but also doing it in a way that shows you are worthy of those referrals. These are things that anybody can be doing. It's hard work, but you need to be allocating daily, weekly, and monthly time to be doing this. This is not something that people many times enjoy doing unless you're in the sales field or the business development field. But if you're starting a business, you have to do these things. And so I just wanted to kind of bring it back full circle with Marquise and VJ. You know, one, I'd love to just hear from both of you on the importance of the organization of your people, processes, and systems. You know, Marquise, you all provide systems to businesses. Without those systems, they're doing things manually. They're not getting it done. It's affecting their bottom line. Why don't you start us off on the importance of having these systems and processes in place?
Having solid systems and processes in place that make the job easier, but also make the job more efficient is paramount. I can't tell you the amount of resources that we've seen lost because processes have not been streamlined or they've not been kept up to date. People are doing things by hand, by pen and paper. And although those have in the past been ways that, you know, we've had to deal with, that we've made as efficient as possible, we're no longer in that time. We're in the digital age. I've seen people lose 15, 20% in terms of shrink a day just by not having good processes in place. So one of the things that we do, that we build upon, is making sure that we help businesses do just that, that we help them be as operationally sound as possible. We do this through making sure that they've got good communication between locations, whether those locations be physical locations, whether it be a physical location, an online location, and a mobile location. whether it be making sure that our content, in terms of content, because you mentioned content creation and dissemination is also very important. If you're going to be using social media, then you should be putting out the same message across all of your platforms. You want to be able to do this as efficiently as possible. So we put systems in place to allow them to have one-click dissemination of all of that information. You also want to make sure that you organize your customers. People don't understand sometimes the value of a customer walking into your establishment and spending funds with you. You should be trying to contact that customer. Grab an email address, a phone number, something that would allow you to market, because that's what we call a guaranteed customer. They've already bought into your dream. They're already there. But if you don't have a system in place to record that information, to take that data in, then it's lost. Make sense, Andre?
It does, it does. And VJ, we were just talking a little bit about the importance of the organization of people, processes, and systems in order to make your business run efficiently. And Marquise was walking us through some of that from a Fiserv perspective. Any thoughts on having the right information systems in place, having the right processes in place, and when you don't, not good things typically happen? Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, going from, you know, being a solo founder and then building a small team and then bringing in a leadership team, you know, we did everything from scratch. So in the beginning, it was Google Docs and just, you know, team meetings. And then as we grew, we started to get systems that were suitable for our team size. So, you know, having a CRM and email tracking and phone tracking. We use something called Pipedrive. It's a CRM where you can hook it up to your email to track, you know, what you send, what people reply to, calls and meetings that you have, so you can see, you know, how many calls and meetings does it take to get to a demo, to get to, you know, a qualified prospect. You know, what's our win rate? You know, what segments of the market? So being able to capture all that information and then add certain things to it to say, this customer was large, this customer is medium, this customer has, you know, these specific needs, then you can start to see that data. The first thing is tracking it. And sometimes as an early stage company or even a small business, you won't know, do you have more, have these resources, dedicated marketing departments. You know, when we hire salespeople, they need to know they don't have a dedicated marketing department. We don't have that. Well, now we're starting to, because we've raised significantly more money and it feels great. But before, we had to have hunters. They had to pick up the phone. They had to figure out what they were going to talk about. They had to, you know, everything was built on folks who wanted to own the process and make it better. But definitely having identified where you can play. As the owner of any business, you have to fill in the gap. My people know there's nothing I'm going to ask them to do that I wouldn't do myself. And they'll tell that to me, like, hey, I know that you wouldn't ask me to do that if you wouldn't do it yourself. So I got that covered. Go do CEO stuff. Right. And I think that was a really weird transition for me to go from founder to CEO, because I'm used to doing everything myself. So I'm not used to saying something and people just doing it. So I think that's also an important part of people, process, and systems as you're a small business or an early stage startup, is realizing things evolve over time. Start with something that works. Don't try to get too sophisticated, and keep where you start to find the biggest frictions. That's generally when you want to start looking at some systems to support it, where, you know, but find something that's easy to use and integrates with your existing systems.
Andre, let me give you another nugget here. One of the areas that businesses typically have or challenged with is labor management. Labor management is the thorn in everyone's side, because you got to have somebody there, right? VJ said that they're getting ready to expand, I think, from 4 to 6 or 7. Is that where you guys are headed, VJ? To like
I was giving a little bit more historical. I think we went from like 5 people or 6 people last year to about 20, 22 now, and it looks like we'll be at 30 by the end of the year.
Perfect. Excellent. Congratulations. So normally, maybe some of those employees may be hourly employees. One of the areas or processes that we see that small to medium-sized businesses typically have a struggle with is labor. For example, your average employee clocks in 5 to 10 minutes early, and they may stay 5 to 10 minutes late if it's unchecked. And you're thinking, oh, it's just 5 minutes, right? It's just 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there. But if that employee is clocking in 10 minutes early, leaving 10 minutes late, that's 20 minutes. Times 6 employees, that's 120 minutes a day. Times 6 days, you could get up to 20 to 40 hours a week that you're paying in additional pay outside of what you have scheduled for that will affect you because your process doesn't check for those things. It doesn't have a system of checks and balances. Those small things add up, and it'll take you into a situation where your job of building your business is harder than it has to be. It's best to make sure that you've got those processes in place.
We actually have a really good system. We have a really good system in place for that. If you guys are having challenges with managing the team in HR, use something called gusto.com, gusto.com. It does both hourly and full-time employees. It integrates directly with QuickBooks, and I get a CEO financial report every Friday on labor and my top financial metrics. And so you can put in things in place to keep those limitations, to manage those risks.
And I'm going to hop
right.
in.
Gusto's our main partner.
I'm going to hop in here. I'm going to hop in real quick, guys. We've hit our time. We could talk probably for another hour on things, but I wanted to make sure I handed it over back to Paula so she can kind of close us out here.
Yes, absolutely. And appreciate the robust discussion that you all had, as well as the great information that you provided to members. Andre Startco, thank you so much for providing your insights in this throughout this series for our members. And then Fiserv, so glad to have you on board partnering with us as we continue to support entrepreneurs and their efforts. So I would love to know how you felt about the session. You will see in the chat that there is a link to a survey. We appreciate your feedback, so much so that the first 25 people to complete the survey will enter in a chance to win an Amazon gift card. So do not delay and make sure that you are in the running for that gift card. And then last but certainly not least, we continue to provide not only year-round programming for our members, but this year also our conference and career fair will be a virtual experience, September 23rd through 25th. You will see a link to that in the chat as well. Please register, and we would love to have you. Enjoy the rest of your day. Be well.